You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. Hey, what are we talking about here today? We're talking about handling the price objection. Hey, there's no reason for you to stress out over when you hear the customer say, your price is too high, you got to lower it. There's no reason to stress out. Hey, and it's more important than not just how you respond, but how you prepare for it. That's what we're talking about on today's episode of the Sales Hunter podcast, and it begins right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a salesman sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Okay, let's get candid here right now. How many times have you wished your prices were lower? Come on, every salesperson has always said that. But here's the deal. I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to tell you a story at the end as to how it actually works. And let's get into it right now, because what it comes down to is there are three things that you got to do. Hey, this episode is sponsored by the How to Get a Meeting with Anyone Mastermind. It's where elite sellers learn audacious, proven strategies to land impossible deals. It's led by Stu Heineck, the Wall Street Journal cartoonist who AMA named the father of contact marketing. You can join now at getameetingmastermind.com. Spots are limited. Okay, here's the deal. Customers will pay any amount. Now, you've heard that before. Customers will pay any amount. Yes, that's right. They'll pay any amount if they see value. And this is the challenge. Now, in today's marketplace, more than ever, customers are sitting there saying, I'm just going to put off making a buying decision. So, I mean, that's a real key, but it comes down to the value. I'm going to go through the three, and then I'm going to walk back and I'm going to explain to you very specific strategies that you can be using to handle each one of the three. Number one, the critical need the customer has. You've got to understand, what is the critical need, and why is it that your solution is better than other solutions? Especially, hey, we're going to stick with status quo. We're not going to buy anything at all. Number two, why now? What makes a decision now so important? What I find so frequently, customers will say, oh, it's critical. It's important for me to buy. But you know what? I'm just not going to do it right now. It just doesn't measure up. Number three there is, am I really dealing with the decision maker? Am I really dealing with the person who can have the budget? In other words, am I dealing with somebody who's just got to take it to somebody else? Okay, now let's go back and let's break down each one of these three. You see, it's not what you think the customer needs. It's totally irrelevant. It's what the customer believes. The customer believes. You have got to get the customer to say it out of their own words. Too many times I hear salespeople sit there and say, well, D, this is the right solution for you. But the customer's not saying it. You got to get the customer saying it. And what I find is this. I've got to hear the customer say it twice. When they hear it twice, now I can begin to understand. So how do I do this? I got to ask them questions and keep drilling down. You got to look at the customer as if they're an onion. I've talked about this before. And you're peeling layers off the onion. You've got to be peeling the skin back to get down to the part of the onion that you really want to use. This is so key. Too many times what happens is salespeople come in with a preset of questions, and then they leave it at that. For instance, I want to ask them questions that are going to say, tell me about the challenges that you're facing. Now, why are you facing them? What are some other solutions? Who of others you've talked to? What happens if you don't solve this? Why is this important? All of these questions you're going through, and you're getting them to really share with you the absolute pain that they have. You see, number two then is, how does this decision really fit into their business right now? See, number two, remember I said is why now? Because again, customers may have a need, but if it's not urgent, they're just not going to run with it. So how does this decision fit into their business? What I want to understand this is the thing that I'm going to ask you to buy, the investment you're going to make, does it fit into one of your top one or two priorities? If it doesn't fit into their top one or two priorities, it doesn't work. For instance, in my own business, there was a solution that, it makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't fit into our top two priorities as a company. So I'm not making a decision. Salesperson's done a great job. They've done a great job of telling me. And yeah, I see it, but not right now. You see, urgency more than ever. So what you have to begin to get them to be thinking is this. If you don't make a decision right now, how is this going to impact your business? And this is what I'm looking for. How is this going to, by not buying right now, is this going to hurt you in terms of being able to do X, Y, or Z? What's going to be the impact on these other pieces that you want to put in place if you don't get this in place? You see, what I'm doing is I'm creating urgency. Now, I can create urgency with the customer if they see the pain is strong enough. For instance, let's use this in terms of a doctor. You go in for your physical, and the doctor says, you're overweight. You really need to kind of reduce your weight. Nothing happens. You don't do anything. But if you go into the doctor and the doctor says, if you don't lose weight, you're going to have serious heart condition problems very quickly. Suddenly now there's a little more urgency. If you go into the doctor and the doctor says, you got to lose some weight. And if you don't, I'm going to be putting you on these meds. And more importantly, we're going to be actually putting you in the hospital. That's urgency. See, what I have to do is I got to create urgency, because otherwise what happens is the customer too often will remain with status quo. For instance, back in that first example, the doctor says you need to lose weight. What do? Status quo. You really don't change anything. This is absolutely key. Why now? What makes the decision so important that they have to make right now? Okay, the third one is, do they have the budget? And am I talking to the person who has that? Okay. This really comes down to having the customer understand the cost of ownership and the benefit of ownership. You see, the question I love asking is, how have you made decisions like this in the past? Who else is involved? I am listening for whether or not they say that they are the ones that can do it. Because if they're not going to really understand the full value of cost of ownership and the benefit of ownership. And those are two very distinct differences. Got to understand this when it comes to price. Cost of ownership is the fact that what you provide is going to enable them to have the lowest cost in terms of, it's a little lower priced and the operation, so forth, and it's not going to break down as often. You're da-da-da-da. But what's the benefit of ownership? The benefit of ownership is even more important, because the benefit of ownership is this going to allow me to produce more widgets? Is this going to satisfy my customers better? Is this going to be, in other words, the benefit of ownership? And I have found this, that when I shift my thinking from the cost of ownership to the benefit of ownership, it changes everything. Okay, now here's where I'm going with this. When you have the answers to these three questions, it is amazing at how you're going to be far more confident. You'll be far more confident, because now when the customer brings up an issue regarding price, you're going to know how to respond. See, what I find is that so many salespeople, when they get confronted with price, they don't know how to respond. Okay, here's the situation. This is why you can't do a quick price quote. When the customer says, hey, just give me a quick price quote, you have to say, no, I can't give you. Now, it is not you're saying no. What you're going to respond with is this. Hey, I'm not even sure if what we have is the right solution for you. Mind if I ask you a few questions? Because I don't want to see you waste money. I've used that line time and time again, and it's amazing at how well it works. Hey, Simon Harris is jumping in. Being able to visualize the consequences of non-action can create timed relevance. Thank you, Simon, coming in from across the pond in the UK. Always great to hear from you. The customer has to be able to visualize the consequences. I love that approach. You see, here's what I found. When I am able to understand and have answers to those three things that I laid out, I'm far more confident. And when I'm far more confident, when the customer objects to the price, My response is this: to come back and ask you a question that is tied to one of those three things. It's going to be tied to the critical need you have. It's going to be tied to the urgency. It's going to be tied to the budget. It's going to be tied to one of the two. And I really prefer the first one or two. I really do. Because again, if I'm only addressing number three, they may have budget, but if I don't have the need, it's not there. Okay, how does this play out? It plays out very simply that you never put a price quote across to a customer without first restating what the problem is that you're helping them solve. In other words, nobody's spending money just to spend money. They're spending money because they got to solve a problem. They're either looking to take care of a pain or a gain. And I know that's lame. I know that's old, but it's so true. And so I never put a price on the table without restating what are the issues that they're solving. And I'm going to ask them a question. Hey, how big of an issue is this if we don't get this solved right now? And because again, I want them realizing that they have to make a move. Because otherwise what happens, all I've done is I've given them a price. And chances are they're going to step away and they may choose to make no buying decision at all. Okay, now, I told you I was going to tell you a story. And we had a customer who called, and we crafted an absolute fantastic solution for this customer. And it was phenomenal. It was great. It was spot on. The VP of sales said, perfect. We want you to come in, want you to do this, speak at our sales meeting, want you to provide this training, want you to do these things for us. And it's going to be absolutely huge because they had a critical issue. They had a critical issue that they had new competitors that were coming into their marketplace, and they were afraid of losing a lot of business. And they were actually afraid of losing salespeople to these two new competitors that were coming into their marketplace. They were scared. They were worried. We presented this. And when we presented the solution to the VP of sales, he said, absolutely spot on. This is excellent. He said, this is great. All I have to do is get legal to sign off on it, and legal will approve the contract. I said, great, no problem. So what happened was he had the buying authority. He was responsible for the budget. He was responsible. We checked every one of those three boxes. Goes to legal. Legal looked at it, and they were a little bit astonished at the size of the price tag. See, they didn't understand. They didn't understand. So they immediately took it to the CEO of the company and said, hold it. This is just way out of line. The CEO called me up on the phone, and the first words out of his mouth were, you're going to have to reduce your price. It's way too high. How much will you reduce it by? Yeah, you've heard those. You've heard those statements. You've been challenged by that. And I immediately said, we can't change the price. All we can do is change the value. How much business do you expect to lose because of the two new competitors coming into your marketplace next year? And there was a pause. There was a pause. The only noise that could be heard was the thumping of my heart. Probably not more than 4 or 5 seconds. He says, that was good. You're hired. Now, what happened there? You see, he realized they had a problem. They had a real problem. And ultimately, my price was chump change compared to what it was that they had as a potential risk. You see, if we had not gone in, A, understanding the facts, 2, me understanding the facts, I would have probably given him a discount. But see, my confidence was high. You see, more discounts are given because of the failure of the salesperson to believe in the price than are given based on the demands of the customer. I firmly believe that. Salespeople don't believe in the price, so as soon as they get a pushback, what do? They give because they don't believe in the price. When you answer these three critical needs, these three critical questions that I've laid out here, you will have the confidence to go into any sales call and be confident in dealing with price. Hey, my name's Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. You've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. What is it? It's 2 episodes a week. One like this, where we do it every Monday morning live at 8 a.m. Central Time. Second episode is where we do a deep dive with the subject matter expert. Do me a favor. Share these podcasts with your peers, with your friends. Leave me a review. And most of all, make sure you're subscribing so you don't miss an episode. I'm Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. Great selling.